What's up, my ninjas? I'm Strident, and as you can see, I don't have a real intro right now. Because once again, I'm getting shit for using 30 seconds, which is usually the standard when you're not trying to infringe on copyright. It's usually the standard for, copywritten music, quote unquote, I had under 30 seconds and I still got flagged for using the song I used, which was Power Glove by Knife Party. I listen to a lot of electronic music. I listen to a lot of music in general. So I'm getting permission from some artists that I know off of Overclock to use some of their music. And I'm going to do that, and then you'll see an intro soon. So bear with me. This has been a frustrating aspect because it's part of my presentation as an artist to give you a good intro to get you hyped for whatever the video is. That's just the way I like to do it, because when you watch cartoons and shit, they always cut the intro short so they can get directly to the cartoon, and I don't like that. I miss the days of humming the theme song when you get hyped to watch a show. None of what they did with Young Justice in the intro. But I'm working on that, and soon you will see another intro. Hopefully it'll be a good one. Hopefully I won't get in trouble for the music, because I don't want any strikes or any of that shit. So anyway, on with this video that I'm so excited to give to you, alright? What is up, my ninjas? I'm Strident, and I am back with probably the one review, or the review in which I will gush the most. As you know, I am a Kamen Rider fan. Faiz is my favorite. I love the Showa era riders a little bit more than the Heisei era riders because they're a little bit too flamboyant. The designs don't really reflect the Kamen Rider aesthetic. But Faiz is the one that, form, function, design, color, everything just speaks to me. And I finally fucking found volume 28, which is Kamen Rider Faiz in the S.I.C format. And I am so geeked about this figure. Oh my god. If ever there was a figure that this style suits, this is that figure. Now, he was sculpted by Kenji Ando, who is one of the two sculptors that work on the S.I.C franchise. Here is some, footage of the back of the box. You know me, I don't really give a shit about the packaging, but this is some nice packaging. And just the fact that it says Volume 28 Masked Rider Faiz, I have to show you this. I had to get this from Korea. I was so geeked. I was constantly checking the mail, making sure I'm watching the tracking. This thing took a long time to get. This was my birthday present. This was the first thing I got for my birthday, and it took the longest to get here. But as you can see from all of what's pictured in the box, he does come with a lot of good stuff. Half of it is kind of like, and the other half is just like, oh. And then, strangely enough, this is the backing. You can take it out and use it as a diorama. I always wondered about that. Does anyone really use that shit as a diorama? And is it giving you guys a headache? I mean, is it giving you a headache now? Is it giving you a headache now? It's just weird to me sometimes that they do this, because usually I open the package, I take out the blister, I take the figure and the accessories out of the blister, and then I put the blister back in the box, and then I chuck the box. So this kind of stuff usually gets stuck. Okay, so let's get into the look of the figure. Here's Faiz out of the package, standing triumphantly in front of us in all of his amazing S.I.C glory. The sculpt on this figure is phenomenal. I have a lot of Faiz figures already. He was the first Kamen Rider I ever got because it was the one that made me even think about collecting Kamen Riders, period. He is going to be, for a long time, he's going to be my prime example, above all the others that I have, of why I am sick and fucking tired of Hasbro's Marvel Legends and the way DCUC ended up. Now, when you have him posed next to you know, or with your other Kamen Rider shit, or as you see here, I got him with the rest of my Faiz figures. Just look at how amazing he looks, even in comparison to the original standard look that Faiz has, which would be the SH Figure Arts. It's just like, man, and the fact that he's posable enough at this size and in this, you know, line to actually assume, you know, the trademark kind of stoop down, prepared to charge pose, you know what I'm saying? It's just like, what the fuck? This is amazing. And then you're looking at him next to the S.I.C. Kiwami Tamashi Faiz, and it's just like, wow, they really scaled up. And there's more detail. I mean, that the Kiwami Tamashi Faiz has a lot of detail to begin with, but then when you see it in 7 to 8 inch scale, it's like, damn, somebody was sculpting their ass off. Not to take anything away from the SH Figure Arts, I still love that figure. The posability on the figure is amazing. The paint is amazing, but it's very simplistic because it's screen accurate. The best thing about S.I.C. is the reimagining of existing characters. It's something that I like to do, and when I say that it's the reason why I like it, I'm going to give you an example. So here is the Yu-Ranger from Dai Ranger, Gosei Sentai Dai Ranger. This was my favorite team growing up. I've done a couple revamps of these Sentai characters. You see, I gave them a streamlined design and baggy pants because in Kung Fu films they wear baggy pants. Here's the picture of him in color and some close-ups on how the design works. Now, this is my work that I did. I think I did this freshman year in college. This is what I had been doing for a long time. It's the way I think. And to think that I've never done Kamen Rider, never drew any Kamen Riders, but I grew up on Super Sentai. And the fact that there is a Kamen Rider toy brand, or a toy brand in general, where they do this, it makes me happy. Going back a little bit, this is the Super RHF Faiz. This was one of my holy grails. Now, the reason why this was a grail is because it came with the bike, and the bike transformed. And at the time, it was the only transforming version of Autovajin, so I had to get him. But you can see this still follows the aesthetic from the TV show. So it's a very straightforward tokusatsu Kamen Rider style costume, because that's what the original one was. Now, you're looking at the S.I.C. one and it's like, holy shit, they just amped all that up to 11, and it just makes for a more interesting looking character. It almost looks like the way that here in America we would amp up a comic book character's costume from the comic to the movie. You know what I mean? Like, this is the movie. Whereas the other version you just saw, which would have been the TV show and the movies in Japan, is actually more of the, it'd be like the cartoon or the comic version. And in many cases, these guys, they're trying to make them more accurate to what they looked like in manga, especially with the Showa era writers. The detail on this guy, though, is amazing. I mean, like I said, the sculpt, it's just like they said, Kenji, go nuts. And Kenji went nuts, and this is what we got. I mean, the plates, the photon blood, and the photon streams, like where the streams go, those are the red lines you see on his body. It just looks so good, and the fact that they used a metallic red or crimson for the photon blood itself, it's fucking awesome, because when the light hits it the right way, you get those shines, which looks like the energy is traveling. It's so perfect. The freaking the power anklet over on his leg, where the pointer, the Faiz pointer, hooks up to, looks perfect. The little bits of like paneling and the seam lines on his the flexible part, the soul foam parts, it's just so good. It looks so nice. I mean, look at his hand. There's more detail in his hand than there is on entire Marvel Legends figures. It's insane. And look at how clean the paint job is. Man, it makes you want to bust in your pants. It's like that good. They actually sat there and they said, I'm going to get... I mean, they even got the silver fingertips that so many people complained that the SH Figure Arts was missing. We got it here, you know what I mean? Look at the little yellow lights that are on the sides of his armor paneling, on his chest and on his abdomen. Look at how clean that is. It's not bleeding over onto the silver, and the silver's not bleeding onto that. I mean, it's just top-notch stuff. Look at the compound eyes. Different style from what you saw with Ichigo and Nigo, but it's still dope. It's still like light years beyond what we get. I mean, how many Iron Man figures have paneling where we could see like Tony Stark's eyes behind the Iron Man eyes, or better yet, white, you know, in the recess you have white, and then above it you have whatever color it's supposed to glow. They don't do that over here because they're cheap as fuck, and they think that that's not how you make a figure. Somehow Bandai's pulling it off. Now granted, these figures go for a little more, but I swear when they first came out, most of them were like 20 something to $30. That's what people pay for Marvel Legends these days. So it's like, how is it that this figure can cost this, and then they do this amazing work with it? No slop. None. No slop. No slop whatsoever. I can't stress it enough. No slop. It's just so well done. It's so pretty. It's just, man, it's a thing of beauty. And this is what I'm saying. We need this level when they do movie masters or movie versions of whatever the figure might be. We need that. You know what I'm saying? It can't be I don't know how you put it. You can't slack like that. You know what I'm saying? It just doesn't make any sense. So look at his legs, the like accordion paneling or I'm sorry, pattern that's going on in between on his gauntlets and on his legs. Look at the back of the belt. All those little ridges, details, panels, whatever, everything is sculpted perfectly, and then it's painted perfectly. They didn't do that shitty wash that Americans like to do where they just spray or pour the fucking, you know, wash over everything and they leave too much of it on. No, it's just enough for you to get the idea that he uses this armor, but not that he sucks at using the armor and he's constantly getting burnt and constantly getting beat up. He looks pretty immaculate. He looks like he comes out of these fights unscathed, you know, for the most part, and that's what I want to see. I mean, that looks good. That makes everything work. It's just a beautiful design and a beautifully rendered you know, interpretation of the design. You just can't ask for more. You know what I mean? There's not much more that I could ask for. This is what I've been hoping to get, and I'm getting it. You know? I've been saying this for a long time when I talk about the accuracy or the what's the word I'm looking for? Workmanship, I guess. You know, the draftsmanship, whatever. The end result needs to look like somebody put some their time and their heart and their soul into it. And a lot of American figures, man, it's like, just do enough to get that shit out there because there's some, you know, poor SOB out there or some SOB with what's the word I'm looking for? Disposable income and no common sense. That's just going to buy it because it's whoever the box says it is. And that's what sells those other figures. Here, they can ask for a crazy price. Look at the quality of the figure. And that's the main thing. Quality. Quality is the most important thing when it comes to these figures. Now, I'm going to save my one gripe, and it's going to be the same whenever you see these reviews. I have one gripe with this line, and it's nothing huge. It's an opinion on the way I think things should be handled in order to make these things last. But I mean, his posability, nothing really hinders anything except you kind of lose a little bit of you know, range of motion with those shoulder pads. But I mean, marvelous sculpt, fucking amazing. There's nothing that I want that's missing. Now, when you compare him to the Super RHF version of Faiz, you can see that equal attention to detail was paid. It's just that the S.I.C version has so much more detail to pay attention to, whereas the Super RHF is an approximation of how he appears on television. You know what I mean? Not that one is worse or better than the other. They're both well done. They're both awesome figures. I just will play with the Super RHF one and not worry about things falling off. That's the one I pick up and play with. Whereas this one is more, you know, pose him and leave him up on my shelf. Here are the 4 main different versions of him, and you can see how the sizes are different. All of these were made by Bandai. When I was telling you guys years ago, Bandai makes the best fucking figures, here's why. You got your 3 3/4 inches, you got your 5-inch scale, you got your 6-inch scale, then you got your 7 to 8-inch scale figure. And do you see how the 3 3/4 inch is, they gave you as much detail as the biggest figure in the line, or, you know, that's offered within this level of scale. When you have let's say you have a preference, you know, say you prefer the movie accurate or the screen accurate versions, you've got multiple things to choose from. I didn't even show you there's some model kits which you can pretty much make an SH Figuarts figure. There are other smaller versions of these characters. There are vinyls. There's a whole bunch out there so that you can get what you want. If you don't want a bunch of articulation, you go to the vinyls. If you want to sit there and put together a figure that has a shitload of articulation, then you go to the kits. I like S.I.C, and if you notice, looking at these two, you see it's like one is a scaled up version of the other. Other one's a scaled down version of the other. It's just that well done. It's that dope. The detail, you didn't really lose anything. There's a slightly different color going on between the two, because the larger S.I.C. Faiz has more of a gunmetal color on his chest armor as opposed to that bright silver that the Kiwami Tamashii Faiz has. But is that like gonna really take away from how awesome this sculpt is? I mean, this figure in general, because I can't just say sculpt, because the paint really sets off the sculpt. And this is what I was telling you guys with the Star-Lord and Drax. Imagine if Drax, like, they actually painted Drax's skin and then turned around and painted the tattoos on top of it, so you got some kind of variation and used the color to help sculpt and accentuate his musculature. Then it makes the figure look better. I mean, look at this. A prime example. There's all kinds of shading and all kinds of variation and gradation of color and just little things that, like, at first glance, you don't notice it. And if you don't know the technical terms for all this shit, you can tell that there's a lot going on here on this figure. And it's all for the better. None of it sucks. None of it takes away from what you're seeing. None of it hurts the figure in any kind of way. It's all just perfect. And I love that when I put my two figures side by side, it's literally like the same damn thing. I mean, every detail is there, and it's still painted. That's what trips me out even more. You look at the small S.I.C, the Kiwami Tamashii version, and you can see those little yellow lights on the sides of his chest and his abdomen, still colored in, still painted, no slop. The little yellow pegs on his bicep for the armor that's sitting on his bicep, still there, still painted, no slop. The photon streams and the photon blood itself, it's still a metallic red, probably the same metallic red, still really nicely put in between those crevices where the photon streams actually flow, or the photon blood actually flows, and it looks good. There's no slop, no complaints, nothing. The freaking compound eyes, still there, going from 8-inch scale to 3 3/4 inch scale. No slop, no problem, no complaints from me. This is what I'm talking about, people. This is why I've made the switch, because if I can get this, that figure was a $10 figure when he came out, the Kiwami Tamashii version. $10. And they're giving you 8-inch scale detail on a $10 3 3/4 inch figure. Please show me a Marvel Universe figure or an Infinite Heroes figure that has that kind of detail. You can show me some G.I. Joes that do, because apparently G.I. Joe matters, but the other stuff, they don't seem to carry on the quality from line to line. Whereas, look at this. Not to say that there probably aren't some Bandai lines that don't use this much detail and stuff, but they still carry on with the quality, and that's the thing that I'm amazed at the most. Now, you guys notice I'm talking a lot about little details on these guys. I haven't even gotten into accessories. I haven't even gotten into gimmicks, quote unquote. I haven't really gotten into that much, but I just have to reiterate so that you guys get it. There is a huge difference in the quality that is given to us here with this figure, these figures in general, as opposed to what you guys are usually used to, what we're usually used to, because I have been collecting Western figures for a long time because I was reading comics and shit, and that's the reason why I started collecting these things. But this right here is an example of the next step. And the detail, man, like look at the mission memory on the front of the phone in his belt. That tiny little no sign. It's painted perfectly. No slop. You know what I mean? They must have been beating the shit out of somebody in the sweatshop when they were making this figure, when they were painting this figure. And this is the Kiwami Tamashi figure. Isn't that ridiculous? That's the tiny figure. Now look at the larger figure. Same amount of detail, except we got a translucent yellow, circle, and then they painted over it. So it's just insane. Insane! Look at how much detail that is. That's so small. You could have gotten away with not making it translucent, not doing any of that extra shit. You could have just painted a yellow bubble with the freaking red line, circle and line through it, and it would have done the job. But no, they went above and beyond to show you what they could do. Once again, look at the compound eyes on this guy. Look at him. This is the Kiwami Tamashi version, the tiny little figure. Look at him. It's just ridiculous. Yeah, when you get up super close like I'm doing now, you can see in the chest where some of the color is starting to fade. I have had this figure for a number of years. I think I got him in 2009 or 2010. But still, look at him. And he comes from like what? 06, I think, something like that, 06 or 07. And then here is the new one, the full scale one. Same shit. It's like, man, they're really doing their thing. It's insane. It's insane. It's like, it's one of those times where you could tell that they enjoy doing what they do. They had fun doing this. They're showing you that when you compare this to other shit that's out there, it just, you can't compare other shit to this. You just can't. And it's not only because Faiz is my favorite. But anyway, you take all that stuff off. Yes, all that shit's removable because he has a gimmick. It was kind of painful because I wasn't interested in the gimmick. And, I almost forgot that there was a gimmick. But for the sake of the review, I took all this shit off once. And I'm utilizing the gimmick so that you guys can see what he does in case you want to or you've been considering buying this figure. So this is what you're left with when you take off all that stuff. No, the legs aren't stuck together. I just put a small box behind him to prop him up so that I could take that picture. This is the other piece, the other part of this set. And in the show, Faiz is what's called Takumi, I think it's Inui. He's a, Orphanok. They're these it's like mutants, except they turn into these animalistic versions of themselves. And he turns into the wolf Orphanok. I'm not a fan of this design. It's an awesome design, don't get me wrong, but I think it looks like someone in a suit. Because when you get up close, in the mouth is like a visor so that you could tell that the suit actor is looking through that visor. And they all have weird shit like that, where it's all organic until you get to the head, and then the head looks like a helmet. So design-wise, I would have gone more organic, make him look more like and less like a Power Rangers, villain or something, But it's a detailed sculpt, and this is the S.I.C version, so they added to what was already an okay sculpt, or an okay design, They didn't really skimp, and you'd think, being that this is like a secondary form for the toy, you'd think they would have skimped on it and made it look kind of, womp womp. They didn't. They really went nuts. All the spikes that you see sticking out of him are all die-cast metal. So transforming him, putting all this shit on that small body, it was kind of a pain because at times, if you're not strategic enough, you will get stabbed by those metal points, and they are sharp. So, like, if you're thinking of buying this for a kid, I don't know who possibly would do that. Don't, because you're gonna hurt that kid, or he's gonna hurt himself trying to put this thing together. So, it's kind of a no-no for the children's. But I was just like, shit, look at all this. Look at all the spikes. Look at all the intricate details that are going on around the spikes, you know? In place of fur, you have plates. It's a nice design. It's a good way to show off your capabilities as far as sculpting goes, you know? And the paint is nice too. They actually do look like that bone color, and it's accurate. I mean, that's what they look like in the show. There's just a little bit of liberties taken here and there with the area, like with where, how do I put this? There's liberties taken with how things interact with individual, you know, other parts. But overall, this is a pretty dope design. I mean, is it functional? Hell no. Because some of those spikes, like especially on his thighs, his upper thigh, if he tried to kick you, then the spike is going in his side. You know what I mean? And I always said that. Sometimes people go too crazy with spikes and shit. But, I don't know. I like these, the backwards compound, you know, the dog legs. That's dope. There is an issue with it, and I'll get to that when I get to the articulation portion. But I really dig the sculpt. I dig the fact that the legs do that. I dig the fact that he actually has paws for his feet instead of shoes, because that would have pissed me off if they made shoes. I would have been like, I'm going to send this bunch, back to the eBay seller I bought this shit from in Korea. He would have been mad, like, what? But, yeah, you know, it's a dope design. I can't complain. I'm just happy that it came out the right way. And I'm not a fan of this portion of it, but once again, this is more than what I was thinking I was going to get. And then when I got it and I see it, even though I'm not a fan of it, I still have to admire the talent that was, you know, that it took to build this, to sculpt all this crazy detail that kicks the shit out of what I'm used to, you know? It's a whole nother story, and it's freaking awesome to see this. It's one of those times where you think back to characters like how come we never get Johnny Blaze and Ghost Rider in a 2-pack? You know what I mean? Like, we should. If we did, it would make sense, because then you could have, you know, the Johnny Blaze wearing what he wears with the trench coat and the biker suit underneath. Then you could have the Ghost Rider on the other side with the same jumpsuit, but kind of, you know, S.I.C'd up, if you will, where you amp up the design. Shit, do half by, you know, let the McFarlane people go nuts with those kind of designs. But they don't do that. You know, give us Dan Ketch on one side and give us the modern Ghost Rider or the 90s Ghost Rider on the other side, you know? Like, they could have, there's so many things they could do. Look at the tail. The bony tail. And everything, you know, back to the point that I was making anyway. Everything fits the way it should fit. It's all secure for the most part. And enough so that I could take these pictures. Let's put it like that. But it's really cool. Now, Faiz is no slouch when it comes to accessories. He comes with the Smart Brain attaché case, which is fucking amazing because I've always wanted the fucking case. I always see the case in other, you know, figures, you know, other releases come with the case. And I'm like, man, I need that case so that I can put all his gear in it. Yes, all the gear goes in there. Not all of it, but the important things, which is the belt, which you see up top, the Faiz pointer, the phone, which is the gear phone, Faiz gear phone, and the Faiz shot. So you've got the belt, which that's the buckle, and when you connect the buckle and the phone and put it on or you put the buckle to your stomach, then the belt actually forms around your waist. Then you put the phone in, and it activates the gear, and you transform into the Faiz armor. You've got the pointer, which is what he puts on his leg, and it shoots out like an kind of a arrow type shot that freezes you in place so he can do his rider kick. And then you also have the Faiz shot, which is like a pair of brass knuckles, special brass knuckles, but it's shaped like a what is that, a digital camera, kind of an old school digital camera. You can put that belt piece on his belt and it actually sticks in there pretty well, you know. I ended up super gluing all the parts back on because I don't plan on ever taking them off, so that I can put the orphanok pieces on. If anything, I'll get another of the core bodies and do it that way, and then glue all that shit together so that I could just have the orphanok separate from this body, you know. The phone fits into the belt perfectly, so the phone is removable. The phone actually is articulated too, and I'll get to that soon. While in the show, when he puts the phone down, and this is kind of a nitpick, but the phone goes in bottom portion of the phone first, and then he flips it down. In the toy, they did it the other way, but you can still kind of slide it down so that it locks into place. It doesn't really lock into place that well. There's one peg holding it, but you know, you could put sticky tack behind it or something. Once the phone is secured in the belt, you can actually open up the phone, because that's how he activates a lot of those moves, is he opens up the face of the phone like so, and then types in, you know, the different numbers for different things, you know. I think it's like 105 for the shot, 555 is what activates the whole thing. But, you know, you watch the show and you'll see what I'm talking about. It's actually one of the more clever ideas for, you know, a rider. And I love it. I fucking love it. And the figure can be posed doing this. It's like, it's amazing, because it's one of those things where you wonder, can he do what I saw him do in the show? You know, especially in this style, because there's so much more detail than what we're used to. And he can do everything. The mission memory, which is the little thing you saw in the front, it's removable. Excuse me. I did glue it back in after I took these pictures, because it does tend to fall out, which, you know, I guess is a downside, but it only fell out once with me. And I was like, I just don't want to deal with that again. And I don't plan on taking it out. Plus, in the show, you take out the mission memory and you put it into all the other things, and it helps, you know, activate their abilities. In the toy, you really have no other reason to take it out, so I just glued it in. Now, on every single other Faiz I have, especially the SH Figure Arts ones, they always come with a version where the belt has the mission memory on it in the phone, and then a version where it's no longer on the phone because you took it off to put it into the Faiz console, or you took it off to put it into the Faiz Edge, or whatever, you know what I mean? And I think it's dope. What I have pictured here, this is the SH Figure Arts buckle. You can tell I've kind of played with it. It's got rust on it because, you know, you take it out, you move it, and, you know, oils in your hands kind of fuck with paint. So, you know, whatever. But I have another one that's really clean and really nice looking. Here's the phone flipped out in his hand. He actually has hands that hold the phone perfectly. And look at the paint on the phone. No slop. How is that possible? You know what I mean? Like, how is it possible for us not to get slop on an accessory like this? You don't have to look at that portion. You know what I'm saying? Like, a lot of people will be like, just don't look at the portion where the slop is. But they didn't put any slop on it. It's just, I just love it. I'm so happy that it is the way it is. The phone actually does turn into a gun. And I figured that out kind of late in the game. I was sitting around posing him. It was when I was actually, I thought I was done, and I forgot that there were more modes that I didn't take pictures of. In the show, the gun, he types in 105, I think it is, bends the thing down, and turns into a gun. That piece you see towards the back on the top portion above his thumb, it's a connector piece for you to add the Faiz shot, which is a form that you do see, or a mode you see in the film or the show. So you compound it, put it together, and it makes it a little bit more powerful. That's ingenious. I mean, like, who would have ever thought to turn a phone into some kind of laser gun or something? You know what I mean? Like, that is insane, on top of just being genius. I was so impressed with the functionality and the form of this, this set is so much going on. I shouldn't even say this set, this particular rider. And then seeing how it translates to this, it's awesome because most of the gear is exactly the same. The big changes are the way the suit looks. Now here's the SH Figuarts phone, which is the smaller one in comparison to the S.I.C phone. And you see it's pretty much the same thing. It's just the scale is different. There are the, let's see, it's the Super RHF is the big fat one. The SH Figuarts one is the next one. And then the smallest one is the small S.I.C one. And there you see them again. And the SH Figuarts compound version of the, gun is underneath the S.I.C gun. Here's the Faiz Edge. This thing is all die cast. Well, the blade is all die cast. In the show, essentially he walks up to the Autovajin, puts the mission memory in the handle of the, bike, and then presses a button and pulls this blade out of the bike. That's why you see a bike handle on the end. This thing is really beautifully painted. Well sculpted too, it's just heavy. The cool thing is I have the Super RHF version, which is really pliable, and it looks pretty good too. It's just not as heavy. So if I want to pose him with the Faiz Edge, there we go. There is the actual, brake and handle for the handlebar for the Autovajin. I was impressed because I didn't think that they were going to include the edge, but every version I have has a Faiz Edge. But you see, all the details are there, even where the mission memory goes. I'm just like, man, these guys outdid themselves. And it's insane that that's it. And here it is with the plug, because you can remove the blade from the plug because, and this is the part that's fucking nuts, you can add this handle to the S.I.C volume 29, which is blaster mode with Autovajin. I mean, are you freaking kidding me? I mean, look at that. So there is a version, an S.I.C version of the bike to go with your S.I.C Faiz. Of course I'm going to get it. I'm going to try to find it. There's no question. I have to now. And it's usually kind of expensive, but when you guys see it, you'll see it's worth it. But yeah, you can remove that. Here is the Faiz Shot, which is the blast knuckles for Faiz. It's cool because it looks compact like it should be. I mean, it looks big for a digital camera, but this was a show from, 2005, 2006, something like that. It might have even been 2001. I can't remember, but I know it's one of the older Heisei era, shows. But the handle folds down so you can grip the handle, and you have the camera looking part sitting on the top of his hand or the back of his hand, right near his knuckles, so he can just squeeze down and punch evil in the fucking face. And I think it's amazing that they engineered it as such. When the handle is folded down, it just looks like it's supposed to be like that. And then when the handle is folded out so that he can hold on to it, it works. It takes a little finagling because the hands are not made of super soft plastic, but they're made of a soft enough plastic that you can move around parts, and that's awesome. So yeah, it sits perfectly on his hand and it doesn't fall off. And the clips where the ends of it fold in, they hold on pretty tight. But like I said, this is more of a display piece. You're not going to be actually making this guy punch stuff, You could, but, And then lastly, we have the Faiz Pointer, which it's a nice little hunk of metal. You can take apart the cylinder from the rectangular base portion that plugs into his leg, but I don't know what you would do with it. I don't remember seeing him separate any of it and put it on anything else. Actually, in the show, that cylindrical part at the bottom, it extends when he's locking it onto his leg. So, I don't know. They simplified here. I don't care. It fits on the leg. You can pretty much approximate what you see in the show, and it works. It looks good. And it's die cast also. All those parts are die cast, the shot and the pointer. It's just dope. Now, the problems and the issues. Of course, the problems and issues would be with the secondary mode. because you could tell that this was built so that they could give you a 8-inch Faiz in the S.I.C style. No, something this awesome couldn't not have at least one problem. The biggest problem, though, is just this extra mode. A lot of those parts, like the shoulder pads, the thigh pads, parts of the thigh pads are actually die cast. Like I told you, the blades are die cast, but the shoulder pads are entirely die cast. And since it's sitting on a plastic figure, they tend to fall off as soon as you move them. Then the other thing is that the design is just too, what's the word? It looks good static. As soon as you move stuff, then pieces start bumping into each other and shit falls off, and it doesn't work as well. I thought that the design is overkill, and that's why I was just like, whatever. Also, when I was pulling parts out, some of the parts, they slot in really well, but when I was pulling stuff out, guess what? The leg broke. And I was waiting because I was like, something's gonna break. And this brings me to my one gripe that I've seen all across with most of these higher end figures. They make them out of some kind of shitty plastic. Like, they choose this really lightweight plastic. It looks good, but over time the shit deteriorates sometimes. Shit falls off when you put too much pressure. It's like, why is it you make the Super RHF figures, or you make American figures out of ABS for the most part, except for Hasbro? You make figures out of ABS that can stand up to play and can stand up to a fall off your shelf. And then these figures, who need it, because if they fall off the shelf, that's like $50 to $100 in some cases down the drain. You don't make them out of ABS. I would just change that. Make all these figures out of stronger, more durable plastic. Especially if you're going to use metal pegs. I love the metal pegs because they don't scare me like the DC collectibles clear plastic pegs that just don't really hold. They don't hold up to basic wear and tear. The metal pegs, I've never had a metal peg break on me. Usually the plastic around the metal peg will break. If you're going to do that, use a stronger ABS. It would just make sense. And it would make things a lot better and a lot more just durable. They would last longer. Because, I want, eventually when I get old, I want this shit to still be in my studio. You know what I'm saying? Like, I want these things to adorn my studio. That's what they're doing now. But I don't want them to take a spill once and then be completely worthless because they took a spill. I'm pretty sure the first time my great Mazinger falls off the shelf, I'm fucked because most of the sharp points are made out of the shitty ABS as opposed to all that metal that's going on all over the figure. So that's just my gripe. This guy is articulated. He has a couple more joints simply because you have that transformation. You can take pieces off, and you have to allow for the other joints to work in addition to the regular Faiz joints. You know what I'm saying? So they gave him extra articulation. He's got ball joints at the bottom of his knees. He's got and he's got a swivel down there too, as well as the swivel at the ankle and a swivel at the upper thigh. So his legs are like really articulated, so you can pull off some of these poses really well. And you have to swivel things around because if you look up at the top of his thigh, the way that armor plate fits, there's a piece that sits up, like almost like it would bump into his upper hip. So you need to be able to turn the legs so you can get him to squat, so he can do these kind of poses, or like to do a nice jump kick or something like that. So what I decided to do with the articulation portion of this video is, a part of the articulation portion of the video is I put together a little match kind of, or a little scene real quick, so you could see how posable the figure is against other figures, you know what I'm saying, or another figure. So let me let you guys check that out.
Now that I have your attention, taken out by superior tech.
Well, the bottom line is that this figure is the shit. Straight up and down, even if you haven't heard of Faiz, even if you've never watched a show, even if you have no idea what a Kamen Rider is, you don't know the difference between Showa and Heisei, it doesn't matter. This figure is the shit, and you kind of owe it to yourself to look into this kind of figure just so you can have something with this level of detail and paint, and in some cases articulation. You know, it's just a quality figure. I mean, the amount of fun you can have with the figure that can do the amount of things that this figure can do, it's endless. I mean, imagine ACBA with figures like this. You know what I mean? Then you really will be creating works of art, because the figure that you have kind of as your centerpiece is worth the attention. You know what I mean? It is art. It works. It looks the part. It's perfect. So, you know, all in all, you just can't go wrong with this figure. Everything about him just screams well done. He is on the expensive side. Like I said, I got mine for under 50 bucks. Shipped all the way to me from Korea. I had spent a lot of time actually hunting down, you know, trying to find a deal on this guy. I've been watching for a long time, so it just was one of those things, you know. So, oh, he also looks perfect with the Super RHF Autovagin, which I figured would be the case, you know what I'm saying? Because he's the right size. He's a little bit taller than the Faiz that came with him, and he's about the same height when he stands up perfectly straight as Autovagin, if not just a little bit shorter, so it doesn't look too bad. It's the closest we will get to having one be the right size and look this amazing, you know? So, yeah, I got another, you know, awesome Kamen Rider to fit with my S.I.C collection, and I mean, look at them. It's pretty dope, right? They just look so good. I mean, you can't say, oh, they look like Power Rangers, because they clearly fucking don't, you know what I mean? And even if they did, you know, the S.I.C versions clearly don't. I almost wish they would do Sentai characters in the S.I.C style. That would be dope. But, like I said, I got more Faiz stuff, which is awesome. I got more Riders, which is awesome. And I'm just happy with them all together. It's just exactly what I've been wanting. He is exactly what I've been wanting since the first time I did an action figure review. This is what I've been asking for. A sculpt that's just fucking amazing, articulation that's awesome, and just awesome everything else. You know, quality. I wanted quality, and I got it. You know, finally I found the line that has some quality. I mean, yes, there is still my gripe. I wish they used better plastic overall, especially around the joints, you know, in the legs and somewhat in the arms, but overall, these guys are top notch. Oh, and I forgot to even mention that Faiz has extra hands, and those extra hands also, just like the Kamen Rider 1 and 2, the ball socket, or the ball itself, is in the hand, the ball peg. It's connected to the hand. Just perfect. Like I said, so much of what I have here works perfectly. You know, there's little things you need to do, like put stick tack in certain places, but overall, you still have just an awesome figure. So, anyway, I'm Strident. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it. This has been my review of the S.I.C Volume 28, Kamen Rider Faiz. I hope you guys dug the video, and I will see you next time. Peace outside.